So before we begin, let me formally introduce our speaker today, which is Associate Professor Dr. Mohd Yusmiaidil. So Dr. Yusmi received his Bachelor of Dental Surgery from University of Malaya. He had both of his Master in Forensic Odontology and Postgraduate Diploma in Advanced Medical Imaging from KU Leuven, Belgium. In 2016, he successfully defended his doctoral thesis entitled Contemporary Dental Age Estimation Models in Children and Sub-Adults from Ghent University, Belgium. He used to serve the Ministry of Health, Malaysia as a dental officer in Kota Kinabalu and Sandakan in Sabah. He was the head of Center for Oral and Maxillofacial Diagnostic and Medicine Studies, Faculty of Dentistry, UITM. And he is currently the Principal Research Fellow at Institute of Pathology, Laboratory and Forensic Medicine, or IPERFORM, a Center of Excellence in UITM. Dr. Yusmi has several consultancies and community involvement in the forensic field, such as head of Scientific Committee for International Congress on Forensic Medicine and Sciences, and head of pre-Congress workshop on forensic odontology in conjunction with the same Congress. On community level, he was involved in several forensic identification operations, namely the Ops Maahad Tahfiz in 2017 and the Ops T-Auraki for exhumation, identification, and repatriation of the New Zealand soldiers who died during the World War II at Terendak military camp in Malacca. His primary research activities involve the fields of skeletal and dental age assessment. He developed a dental age prediction models and constructed a new maturity scale of teeth developmental staging based on Malay population. In 2017, Dr. Yusmi won Gold and Silver Awards for IDEX and ITEX as Principal Inventor, respectively. So congratulations, Dr. Yusmi, for your amazing achievement in innovation. And Dr. Yusmi has deep interest towards contemporary data visualization through infographics and sensible analytics. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Yusmi to deliver his talk this morning, entitled Automated Dental Dating for Age Estimation in Forensic Human Identification, Rise of Machine ... Learning. Yeah, such an interesting title. So the floor is yours, Dr. Yusmi.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Hugh, for the kind introduction. I hope everybody can hear me. All right, Dr. Hugh, can you hear me? Can you confirm
yes,
that?
Of course. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. All right, so Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. And thanks for attending this webinar series by the TNCPI office. All right, so I think that for these 2 weeks, I think that our Center of Excellence, IPERFORM, is going to showcase our research finding and research exhibition on webinar. All right, so stay tuned. Well, I guess that there are several fellows as well that are going to present their research on webinar series. And I think that everybody knows that Dr. Hugh already presented us as COE, I think a few weeks back on his journey looking for penguins in Antarctica, yeah, Dr. Hugh?
Yeah, it was on 1st June, yeah. Long time ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, then, so I'm going to talk about the research that I've been doing since 2011, and in fact that I've been doing it actually when I was a dental officer in Sabah, because actually that in Sabah that we've got quite a number of immigrants that when they come to dental clinics or when they commit some crime, for example. So basically that the authority has to establish their age. All right, so that's where that we come in handy, because actually that for dental, actually it's quite easy for us to do the age estimation based on the teeth development. All right, so that's where that my interest sparked. That's where that because I thought that all this while that we are using data from the Westerns, they come out with a system, they come out with Atlas system, you know, so that we can estimate age based on that. But the thing is, in the court, for example, basically that it is not enough, because actually that if we want to do some age estimation, it has to be based on a specific population. All right, so which means that if we are going to estimate age based on a Malay population, we must back up, or we must use a system that actually use a Malay population as a subject, as a data. All right, so that's the thing that quite lacking at that particular moment. All right, and then that's why that it give me a great interest to pursue this study, to come up with our own system for age estimation. All right, so this is actually the gist of the presentation today. I'm going to talk about the introduction a bit on the branches of forensic science, where we come from, the domain of it, and then I'm going to share as well that some of the cases, some of the operations that have been involved, especially in mass disaster, where we, as a forensic experts, we are invited to help, to come and help to identify bodies. For example, like just now that you have heard about Dr. Hio mentioned about the OPSMART Tahfiz that occurred in 2017. I'm sure that although that it has been 3 years, but I'm sure that it's still, we still remember that case. All right, I'm going to talk about that as well. And then I'm going to talk as well about the role of forensic experts in terms of identification process and the challenges that we forensic experts face when we go into the field, especially for the mass disaster. And then the research that we come out, to improve the current system and to make the identification process faster, easier, cheaper, and not time consuming. All right, so now this is a bit of introduction of forensic specialties related to human remains. As you can see here, well, we've got several specialties that are related to human remains when we want to identify, or actually we want to know the cause of death. Because in forensic, actually, that there are 3 things that we will be doing, because this is the domain or the gist of the forensics. First of all, that of course we want to know the cause of death. And second of all, that we want to establish the identity of the dead. And thirdly, we want to know the process behind a certain chronology. For example, like we wanted to know that if a certain crime has been committed, and we wanted to know how, we want to postulate how the process occurred during that time. All right. So first of all, that we have the forensic pathology that I think everybody knows that the role of forensic pathologists is actually they wanted to know the cause of death. This is where the autopsy comes about, and then where they will do the post-mortem to know the cause of death. And secondly, forensic anthropology. This is actually involved for human identification, where the forensic anthropologists are dealing with bones, to estimate age as well, and then to know the stature, and then if there's some fracture, for example, so they can know that as well. And thirdly comes is forensic odontology. All right, so actually that we are only dealing for human identification. All right, so actually that we want to know that whether that a certain body is actually belong to a certain body. All right, whether that this is Mr. X, for example, that we want to be sure, we want to make sure that we identify it as Mr. X. This is actually particularly pertinent to if we've got a body that beyond recognizable, for example, like a charred body, for example, or drowned bodies, all right, so where we cannot make identification based on the facial identification only. So we have to do some other measures to identify that. And of course, we have forensic radiology, and actually, as a matter of fact, that we have one fellow that I perform as well. Associate Professor Developmental is a forensic radiologist, and this is forensic radiologist is involved for human identification as well, looking into the post-mortem CT scan and so on and so forth. And we have forensic entomologists, and actually that our moderator today, Dr. Hio, is actually a renowned forensic entomologist in Malaysia as well. And it involves for body decomposition, medical legal, and as well as human identification. All right, so looking into the flies, looking into insects that are related to human bodies, and basically based on that, they can estimate the time of death and so on and so forth. And last but not least, the toxicology. All right, so this is actually to know the cause of death, and then medical legal. This is actually that they are working hand to hand with the forensic pathologists. All right, so basically that whatever forensic pathologist has been doing during the autopsy, then the toxicologists will come about to help as well. All right, so now that this is actually what I'm doing at the moment. All right, so I started as a dentist, of course, that when we are talking about the dentistry, so I think that people would always think about that we are doing filling and extraction only, right? But the thing is nowadays that our obligation is taken as more than that, all right? So it's no longer about the filling, about the extraction, but it's more of like, for example, like what I'm doing at the moment now, that doing human identification, because I'm a forensic odontologist, so that's something that I do now. Instead of looking at the in the mouth to check for cavities, to check for restoration, I have some other mission as well. I wanted to give identity, to give to be able to estimate the age of a particular individual. For example, refugees, the undocumented children who comes to certain countries because of fear. Maybe they got murdered in the country, for example. So basically, they just come, without any documentation, without any passport. So when they come to any country, so basically it is important to establish the age of these particular children or person, because the thing is, if we do not know the age of certain individuals, there are a lot of things that we cannot do. For example, like to get for a school, and then if they commit some crime as well, that basically that it is important to know that whether they are underage or above the age of majority, because actually in terms of sentences is a bit different. All right, so I give you an example for for drug trafficking, for example, because in Malaysia that we have the mandatory sentences for that. All right, so if any particular perpetrator is actually above 18, so basically that they will be hanged to death. But if they are found to be the minor, so basically that they are escape from that harsh punishment. All right, so that's the segregation between the age of concern that we are doing. All right, so not just that, but we are looking into more disasters nowadays. All right, so if you remember that just recently we have the world has seen the explosion in Beirut. All right, so I think hundreds of people died in that explosion. All right, so I'm sure that there's a lot of identification that needs to be done there. All right, so if we still remember as well the tsunami, all right, that occurred in 2001, if I'm not mistaken. All right, that has consumed a lot of lives as well. All right, so that's why that we have to do identification to the dead body. All right, so in forensic, we have a term, we call it forensic primary identifiers. All right, so in forensic human identification, all right, so basically that these three primary identifiers can stand alone. So which means that if we manage to get a thumbprint, for example, from that particular individuals, so basically we can say that this is actually A or B or C, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C. All right, so there's no need to have all three. Only have one, then that's enough. All right, so among the three, forensic odontologists come second. All right, so this is where that we are going to do dental comparison. We are going to take the post-mortem dental data, and then we are going to compare with the anti-mortem dental data. So basically that based on this alone, we can establish the identity of the individuals. All right, and then last but not least, DNA analysis. All right, of course that we know DNA is a miracle tool nowadays, but the thing is for DNA, it is actually time consuming and quite expensive as well. So basically, if we are talking about the mass disaster, for example, like the tsunami, basically we cannot use DNA analysis because one thing, there are thousands of people who needs identification, all right, and secondly, that it is expensive and then it's going to take a lot of time. And next one is actually that we do not have any anti-mortem data to match the DNA analysis. So basically, we can do it post-mortemly, but the thing is when we want to compare, when we want to match whether this particular individual belongs to who and who, basically we cannot do that, you know, during the tsunami experience because actually we do not have the anti-mortem data. All right. And based on that as well, that because we as a forensic expert for forensic human identification, we work closely with INTERPOL as well. So INTERPOL has come out with this statement, with this saying that this is actually the chain of command for the DVI, for disaster victim identification. All right, so you can see that we've got the identification expert for medical, dental, fingerprint, and other specialists is actually within the director of victim identification. All right, so now that we are going to ask this question, why is age important, right? Age is important because an identified body is extremely important to match with the missing person data, all right? So basically that if our loved ones goes missing, so basically that we are going to lodge a report, you know, saying that this particular person, you know, has been missing, you know, for quite some days already. All right. So basically that particular report is going to be included in the missing person data. All right. So in that particular case, for example, and if we or the police found any dead bodies, for example, so we are going to try to match that particular body with the missing person data. All right. So this is why that identification is important to identify that body, whether that they actually fulfill the description by the missing person data. So that's why we have to estimate age, because we want to cluster that. We want to be able to categorize it into that data. All right, so it is also important in undocumented individuals, as it determines a person's access to education and support, affects the way in which their asylum claim is processed, and can even be a decisive factor in a claim for asylum. All right, so nowadays that we receive a lot of asylum seeker application. All right, so and then sadly that in asylum application, basically that in terms of the age estimation, actually that at this particular moment that they are used as a subjective assessment. So which means that the health worker come and then they just estimate age based on appearance. All right. So, but one thing for sure that we know that when people live in harsh environment, for example, they tend to look more mature. All right. So this is actually something that's difficult to ascertain, because the thing is when we see someone, you know, looking like adults, but the thing is they are not adults, but they appear as adults because the environment needs them to be adults. All right, needs them to be toughened up. All right. So, but the thing is, it is yeah, because I've seen a lot of cases that a lot of misclassification that saying that people categorize children as adults. So can you imagine that how difficult it is for the children to adapt with the adult environment, right? Age is central to identity, and the age assessment process can be very damaging, especially for children who are disbelieved. All right, so this is actually pertinent to the case that I mentioned just now. All right, so they are, you know, looking like adults. All right, but the thing is they're not adults; they are still children. All right, so how we estimate dental age? All right, so from here, that's why that if you go to a dental clinic, so usually that you are going to get this radiograph, or we call it panoramic radiograph. All right, you can see that there's a permanent teeth development. You can see that from the upper figure just here. we can see that the development of the permanent teeth, underneath the baby tooth. All right, and then we have the third molar development as well, and then we have third molar eruption. So this is actually the marker that we use to estimate the age, because actually that if you see from the development stage and in terms of the morphology is going to be different in aging. All right, so when people aging, basically that the teeth are going to develop as well. All right, according to the certain morphology. All right, now that I'm going to share you about my experience in international operations. All right, so I've been involved with quite a number of operations as well. In 2016, we have Ops Reunite, and then identification of drowned victims from a capsized boat. All right, this is one I got invited from the Ministry of Health to come and help the capsized boat in Kota Tinggi, Johor. And in 2017, we have a set case, the Ops Maahad Tahfiz. And then in 2018, we have the Ops Tauraki, which you can see that Ops Tauraki and Ops Reunite is actually occurred at the same place at the Terendak Camp Melaka for the military officers who died during the World War II. Right, because actually that Ops Tauraki belongs to the New Zealand and the Ops Unit belong to the Australian government. So basically they wanted, because actually the siblings and next of kin, they requested the government to bring back the bodies of their loved one that died in the Terendak camp. So they wanted to exhume the grave and then repatriate it to the country of origin. All right. So I'm going to share you these two Ops Reunite and Ops Maahad, because actually that if I'm going to go all, I think that we don't have enough time for that. All right. So Ops Reunite, this is actually during the 30th April to 2nd of June 2016. All right. So actually that it is a government-to-government operation. All right, this is actually that with the government of Malaysia and government of Australia. 32 Australian remains. You can see that the numbers of graveyards there. So belongs to the Australian military officers who died during the World War II. All right, so actually that this is where that we have to exhume the grave, and then we have to identify the body, whatever left lah. Because actually that we thought that we may find some skeleton, some teeth, but the thing is, most of the cases here, I think about 60% of the cases are actually that we do not find anything, because actually that the soil is quite acidic. So basically that the acidic soil is consume everything, the bone, the teeth, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, we managed to find few cases that have preserved teeth that I'm going to share with you later on. All right, so this is actually the ad hoc mortuary that we have built, especially because it's within the compound of the Ministry of Defence. So basically, Ministry of Defence was hosting that camp. All right, so that's what we do. Some of the skeleton that we obtain from the grave, and then we have to remove the soil to get what we wanted. All right, so these are the coffins that have been provided by the government of Australia. All right, and then that's, if you are looking at the tent, that's where that we work, as a ad hoc mortuary. All right. All right, so for the dental reconstruction, this is actually from one of the cases that we've got. This is actually a children. I think that she was the daughter of one of the military officer that she died during that particular time as well. All right, so surprisingly and amazingly that the teeth are still intact, and you can see that there are still bone cover up the teeth. And then you can see that, down there, you can see some permanent teeth coming out as well. All right, so basically that, as a forensic odontologist, that I know in instance what is the age of this particular individual. But the thing is, because of documentation and everything, so we have to do the dental reconstruction. We have to arrange the teeth accordingly. All right, so this is where that the knowledge of forensic anthropology is important as well, because actually that we have to make sure that the teeth is arranged accordingly and correctly. All right, so this is from that particular children. All right, so I'm so sorry that I have to blur there some detail because actually that yeah, it's a sensitive data. All right, so age, no antemortem record available, and sex female, race Australian, occupation child of World War II Australian soldiers, and so on and so forth. And you can see that this is a very small graveyard of this whole child. Right. In terms of examination, we took radiographic examination. This is something that we have to do. All right, and then this is things that we do to estimate the age as well. All right, to identify the body, and we have to estimate the age. This is the kind of radiographic examination that we have to perform. All right, and then we go into the investigation. Of course, we go first radiology, anthropology, and last but not least, odontology. All right, so after we've done the dental reconstruction, and then we have to use this method, we have to use at least 2 methods to be able to come at the conclusion that what is the estimated age of this particular individual. All right, first of all, that we use London Atlas by Al-Qatani and Demirjian. All right, so just bear in mind that all of these data, all of these system is actually developed by the Western. London Atlas, of course, developed by the Londoners data set, and Demirjian was based on the French Canadian. All right, so basically that you can see that in terms of the age estimation, yeah, we suspected that there's going to be some sort of discrepancy, because actually that in terms of the maturities, it's going to be different from one population to another. All right, but we still have to make do. All right, and then later, after that, in 2017, that we have to do the identification on the Ops Maahad Tahfiz. All right, so this was on the 14th September 2017. All right, 23 victims, including 2 teachers, died during that incident. All right, so as a practicing forensic odontologist, and I have to tell you that actually that this is the saddest case that I've received. I think that few friends of mine concur with that as well. All right, because actually that we are looking into victims who were children. All right, so of course we always have a soft spot with children. All right, especially when they got burned, child beyond recognition. So basically it is hard. It is hard for us as the forensic expert as well. All right, some of the background. All right, so basically you can have this actually report. If you are going into the http://bit.ly down there, you can have this report because it's an open source report. Done by the IPFN Institute Perubatan Forensik Negara. All right, so just a little bit of the background. The Darul Quran Ittifaqiyah is a private Islamic center known as a Tahfiz school for Muslim children, mainly boys, to study and memorize the Quran. It is a practice where students often live in the Tahfiz boarding school, and students are put under the care of the center. Right, and at pre-dawn, a fire broke out at the Tahfiz Darul Quran religious school in Jalan Keramat Ujung on the 14th September 2017. The blaze was reported at around 5:15 a.m. on Thursday morning, and the victims are thought to be trapped in their dormitory as the windows were barred with metal grills. All right, so this is actually one of the sad part as well. That actually that it's not that the victim did not realize there's a fire, but they realized it. But the thing is, they cannot go anywhere because that the dormitory was barred with metal grills and they cannot open it. All right, and some of the students as well managed to go out because they have to climb the rooftop, and then they have to jump it. All right, so basically that there are few survivors who survived the fire, but the thing is the impact because of the jumping, some of them got broken leg and things. So that's that's another part as well. All right, firefighters rushed to the scene after receiving a distress call at 5:41 a.m. and took an hour to put out the blaze, which started on the top floor of the 3-story building. All right, so when the fire started at top floor, it is difficult to find an exit. All right, so this is the chain of command. All right, so the operation was hosted by the IPFN, Institute Perubatan Forensik Negara, by Datuk Dr. Shah. All right, and that we have been assigned into several groups. All right, so whether that you are in post-mortem group, anti-mortem group, or reconciliation group, so this is actually the chains of command. All right, and then this is actually the forensic odontology teams. All right, so led by Dr. Nohayati from the Ministry of Health, and as well that we all forensic experts come and help from ATM, from UKM, Masa University, and UITM come to help with that identification. All right. So again, this is actually the report that you can view on public domain. All right. So as you can see there, that this is the team of forensic odontologists. All right, and then me as representative from UITM came and helped to do the identification. I remember that the case was we started to do the identification at 1 p.m. and I think that we managed to conclude everything around midnight that day. So we were working non-stop just to get the identification of the body, because actually that this is high-profile case, and we need to do the identification as quickly as possible, because we do not want any more seconds, because the family are asking, and then they wanted to have reassurance, they want to have a closure, you know, to tell that whether their loved ones are still alive or not, right? So that's why that we have to do the identification around the clock, and we have to do it as soon as possible. All right, so this is some of the photos. I'm so sorry that I have to blur some photos, because actually this is actual photos that we've got. All right, so this is based on the identification, and these are the radiographic examination that we have performed. All right, and then we do the age estimation based on, you can see that the 37 here, 37 represent the number of tooth that we are looking at, the tooth 37. Or the second molars. All right, you can see that the development are still there, and then it really shows that they are still children in this particular instance. All right, and after that we compare with antemortem. All right, because actually that all these children is actually they were well taken care of. All right, in terms of the dental as well, actually that their dental conditions are almost perfect, almost good, without any caries, without any heavy restoration. So which means that they were well taken care of. All right. So when we are looking into the antemortem or the document, so basically that we do not see any caries or whatsoever. All right. So although that it shows that the children were good, but the thing is, it makes our job a bit difficult, because actually that is difficult to compare if you do not have any restoration and whatsoever. All right. And after that, we have the post-mortem reconciliation, and we, as the experts, after we have done the antemortem and the post-mortem, and we have to reconcile and then to say that whether this particular individual is actually that particular individual. It has to be beyond reasonable doubt. You know, if we have any doubt, then we have to say that it is not confirmed. Right. All right, so a little bit of challenges and opportunities when we are dealing with the forensic human identification. All right, of course, the first challenge is that it is a subjective assessment by the expert, because actually that when we receive the body, and then we have to take a radiograph, and we have to do the manual age estimation by ourselves. So which means that some experts, they have different preference in terms of techniques, and then in terms of assessment, it's going to be subjective as well. So that's provide a first challenge for that, because although that the assessment is not going to be like too much, but the thing is the difference is there. Right, and then secondly, the conventional method, whether we are using atlas or formula, is a population specific. Right, so if it has been built based on a Western population, for example, so we can't really actually ethically that we can't really use it for our own population unless that we have done some validation. All right, and thirdly, time consuming in mass disaster identification, because actually that we have to treat the body case by case. All right, so we cannot just take radiograph and send it to a system and then tell them to tell the age, but we cannot do that. All right, so we have to do it one by one. So which means that we are going to have one radiograph and we are going to analyze and assess it, and then we are done with it. All right, but in mass disaster, actually that is time consuming, especially that when you are dealing with hundreds or thousands of dead individuals that require identification. All right. And of course, it's not always challenges, but there are, these particular cases provide opportunities as well. Because at the moment now we have a large data set, for panoramic radiograph, you see that the radiograph, the big radiograph just now, well, we have a lot of data set to do age estimation, all right? So basically we can do some, automated machine learning age estimation based on the large data set that we have. And secondly is that because what I like about this the most is actually it is interdisciplinary approach, all right? So which means that because I'm understand that nobody knows everything, all right? So basically that, for example, I'm a forensic odontologist. I know how to estimate age based on the dental data. Right, but the thing is, when it comes to the machine learning, I have to get help from people, for example, from electrical engineering, because I've been working with some of the great electrical engineering faculty members who were very, very enthusiastic about this project, and then they really make wonders to this particular field. All right, so we are moving on to the machine learning algorithm. All right, so now that of course, everybody knows that for machine learning algorithm, we have the supervised learning and we have the unsupervised learning. All right. So for supervised learning, actually, it's quite easy to perform, because actually that in the end of the day that you are going to come up with, for example, like multiple linear regression and then do some formula, mathematical formula, and you're done with it. All right. But for unsupervised learning, so basically there are a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. For example, that you have to do some segmentation first, and so on and so forth. All right, do some clustering. I hope you can still see my slides here. I'm not sure why I cannot see the slide.
Yes, Dr. Yusmi. Yeah.
Oh, all right, okay. Right. All right. So this is actually based on the supervised learning that I've done before during my PhD. I did for multiple linear regression model in Malay juvenile and Malay sub-adults. So we have come up with the third molar development and eruption models to estimate dental age in this particular population, right? So because actually this is a portion of a bigger project, because actually that after the Malay sub-adults and juvenile, we wanted to expand it to the Chinese population and Malay population, so that we can have a large data set, so that when we want to use the to estimate age on this particular population, we can have that, right? So actually that, I think that this project is open for everyone as well, that if you want to be involved with this, please you can email me, and then we can have some discussion on this project. All right, so based on that particular supervised learning, so basically we have the two sets of data sets. We have a training data set where we wanted to develop the formula, and then we are going to test it on data set, because actually that if you are doing just a training data set, when we want to create a system, when we want to create a prediction model, so you cannot just create a prediction model, so you have to test it on data set as well, because that's where that you know that whether your prediction model is really accurate or not, right? Of course, that's based on the third molar development. You can see that this is the atlas that I'm using, and then the third molar eruption as well, based on the radiographic third molar eruption, and then we combine them. Right, in terms of statistics, these are the selection of variables. In terms of multicollinearity, we check the multicollinearity, because we do not want to have a weak model, a weak prediction model, because we know for a fact that if we have multicollinearity in our model, so it's not going to work well in reality. So that's why that we have to remove multicollinearity. And then at the end of the day that we check for the root mean square error, the error between the prediction model and the real age of that particular individuals. Alright, so this is the mathematical formula that we have developed based on the multiple linear regression. Alright, so for men, we can have the only third molar development formula, or only third molar eruption, TME, or we combine them, because actually that we were under the notion that the more the predictors, the better. Right, but the thing is that's not true, because some of the predictors actually gives you nothing, right? But some predictors really give a boost to your formula. All right, so that's why that the selection of variable is important. All right, so we have come up with a combined third molar development and third molar eruption prediction model, and that gives the best model for the Malay population. And we have tested it to the testing data set, and it gives quite remarkable results as well. Alright, so this is one example of how we do it. Alright, so first of all, that we score based on the third molars. You can see that the third molars and the last to develop there. Alright, and then we score that based on the staging. And then after that, we get the numeric score, and then we import it to our formula. And then at the end of the day, that we will get this estimation. All right, but the thing is now, this is the question of the hour, that whether that actually it is enough. All right, so personally, I think that it is still not enough, because actually for supervised learning, that you are doing a lot of manual subjective assessment in terms of the scoring, because when you see how the two develop, so basically that you are going to refer to the atlas. All right, so now that what we are thinking is that we do not want to depend so much on atlas. All right, so atlas will be there. All right, but the thing is we want it to be automated. So which means that when we take the radiograph and then we just put it into the system, and then the system is going to do the analysis for us. And at the end of the day, that the system is going to give us the estimated age of that particular individual. So that's the ultimate point that we wanted to achieve. All right, so in order to achieve that, so we must have a system that thinks like human. All right, so things like system that thinks like a brain, for example. All right, so they know how to input the data, and they know how to do the segmentation or something, and then they can make a decision themselves. All right, so we wanted to have a quick decision, and we wanted to have the decision that is correct. All right, so that's the thing that we wanted to have with this algorithm. All right, so in other words, this is what we want to have. All right, so we want to load the image. For example, like if you have the panoramic radiograph there, load the image, and then the system is going to do the segmentation automatically, and then it's going to do shape analysis. It's going to shape according to the relevant age at that particular morphology, and then it's going to give us the dental age that we want. All right, so this is actually the perfect system that we want to develop. All right, okay, so and then that leads us to the CNN. Of course, after the supervised learning, and then we are looking into the unsupervised learning, and we are looking into the possibility of convolutional neural network as well. All right, so this is actually this framework has been performed by my PhD student now, Asmira. All right, so basically that she's the one who developed all the CNN framework and everything, and these are the elements of CNN. All right, so I think that if you are medical imaging, or for example like in electrical engineering, I think that this is actually bread and butter for you. Right, so basically these are the elements of CNN, and then this is the implementation of the deep CNN for the dental stage classification. All right, so first of all that we load the data, and then we of course that we are using Python and deep learning libraries on this one. All right, so this is quite technical for some. All right, but just bear with me for like just a little bit more. All right, so define the QRS model, compile the model, fit the model, evaluate the model, and make prediction. All right, so this is actually a framework that has been devised by my PhD student. All right, so in terms of the load data set, this is actually that sort of like the coding that you have to do. All right, and then you have to define the Keras model. So this is actually that the model that we use now to develop the automated system. And then after that, we compile the Keras model. All right, so that's the cross-validation that we have from the data sets. And Adam shows the most stable optimizer as it converges as nearly as 30 epochs. All right, so we use Adam for that. And then after that, we feed the model and then we evaluate the model accordingly. Okay, and this is the final outcome of it. All right, so actually that you can see here that you can see the test image, the output, and the test image according to the each morphology, each developmental staging of the tooth. All right, so this is the confusion matrix that has been come out. All right, you can see that if we are following the normal atlas, we have the C, D, E, F, G, H is actually the level of the score for the tooth development. All right, so whether the tooth development at stage C, D, E, F, and G. All right, you can see that at the x-axis, predicted label, and the true label is actually the y-axis. We can see that if we predict the stage to be C, it gives us a very high accuracy, about 0.93. All right, but for D, it gives us 0.79. All right, quite high, but not quite. All right, but but for E 0.45 and F 0.59. So basically that 0.45 and 0.59 is not considered as accurate. All right, so we have to do something about this. All right, because you can see that G and H give a very good accuracy, 0.88 and 0.94. So now that when we have D, E, and F, that actually gives you a little bit less accurate. So we wanted to examine that what we can do in terms of the developmental stage that we can make it more accurate. All right. So just bear in mind that Demirjian is actually the father of the age estimation in children. All right. So the Demirjian the Demirjian system just now, what you see is actually based on the old system. It was developed in 1973 and then it still has been used widely even nowadays. All right, but the thing is we wanted to make Demirjian, the new Demirjian, based on this automated system. All right, so based on that, if you remember that DEF, if you remember that here DEF, so we dissected more into 5 more stages: D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. And after we dissect it into 5 stages, you can see that in confusion matrix, the accuracy gives better accuracy. All right, so D1 0.81, and for D2 about 1, almost it's perfect, and D3 0.87, and D4 1, D5 0.95. All right, so basically that when we dissect it into more staging, it gives better accuracy on that. All right, so that's our aim at this particular time. All right, so now that to recap that what we have done so far. All right, so actually that we have done in 2011, 2012, we have done some preliminary works on dental dating. All right, so it was done during my master's, and then during my PhD, I did working on supervised learning using the multiple linear regression. And then in 2016 and 2018, we obtained the MLR, the multiple linear regression model for dental dating on Malay population. In 2018-2020, with PhD candidate, we are working on the unsupervised learning. And 2020 and onwards, we are working on CNN framework for fully automated dental dating system. All right. So this is actually the chronology that what we have been working so on, what we have obtained so far. All right. I think that we are almost finishing our webinar series. All right, so this is just I just want to show that the recent TRGS grant that we have received, all right, for mechanism of drone assisted technology on efficiency of mass disaster victim identification. All right, so we have Dr. Hill as well there, Prof. Datin Hafiza, the Associate Professor Datin Mansharan, and Datuk Shah was the we are the member of that group. All right, so this is actually that based on the interdisciplinary project that I've been working on with the UKM members, Latika, and as well as from UITM, we have Prof. Noritawati as well on board, you know, and we managed to get go in IDEX for this project, for my dental age project, right? So I really hope that we can expand it to a bigger platform, and then we can, you know, make use of this system for the forensic human identification. That's the ultimate goal for this project. All right, so I guess that this is the second last one, the expertscape. That if you want to know the expert, you know, for a specific field, for example, just go to expertscape.com and look for that expertise, and then you can come about, and then you can see that who is who are the player in that particular field. All right, so in this particular field, for example, that if you are looking into expertise in forensic dentistry, so basically that there are a few names pop out there. So basically that this is where that we can make connection, we can make networking based on the expert. Well, I guess that's all. All right, so thank you so much. And these are the people that who have been involved in this particular project of My Dental Age. We have Prof. Aini from UKM, Dr. Anwar from UKM, Associate Prof. Dr. Hanif, UKM, and we have Puan Hasmira from UITM, the PhD candidate. We have Prof. Ita as well, the Director of Renew, Associate Prof. Dr. Hana, UITM, Associate Prof. Dr. Wan Mimi from UKM, Dr. Zaid Omar from UTM, and Director of iPerform, Prof. Hafiza, and the Dean of Faculty of Dentistry, Dr. Prof. Muhammad Ibrahim, and Prof. Prabhakaran from Mahsa. And we have some international collaborators as well. We have Prof. Mika Sibia from University Airlangga, and we have Dr. Madya from University Airlangga as well. Both of them are forensic odontologists, and they are working closely with me on this particular project. Well, I guess that's all. Then if you want to, you know, reach out, then you can just scan the QR code, and then you can email me for anything. All right. With that, I thank you so much for your kind attention. And if you have any question, please, I hope I can answer that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Yusmi, for your inspiring and impactful presentation, as always. First of all, I must say thank you for your service, Dr. Yusmi, for the country and for the people. I think what you do is a noble job, and we respect your professionalism, and we also appreciate your contribution to the country, to the people, to the family, to the victims, and to those fallen little angels. All right. Now is the time for our Q&A session, right? So if you have any question, you can ask Dr. Yusmi straight away, or you can also put in your question in the chat room, and I can read out the question for you. All right, maybe I can ask the first question, Dr. Yusmi, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so regarding, you mentioned just now the environmental stress, especially those in the refugee camp. So would the environmental stress affect the teeth development and morphology?
All right, thank you for the question, Dr. Hugh. Well, actually, that the environmental stress does not affect the development of the teeth or development of the bone, for example, because actually that the development of teeth actually it's free from external factors. Right, so which means that if you have a lot of stress, and then you have some other issues, external issues, basically it's not going to affect on the dental development, right? But the dental development can be affected by the internal stimulus, for example, diet, for example, all right? That's going to affect the dental development, all right? So in that particular sense that I think that if you are going to, for example, if you are going to predict a model based on the dental development, well, I think that maybe I suspect there will be a difference between people who live in harsh environment, because actually that in terms of diet, they are not the same with the normal healthy kids. All right, so in that particular sense, I believe that there will be some discrepancy in terms of dental development, but not on the external factors.
Right. Thank you for your answers. There's one question coming in from Itaza Afiani Mokhtar. How does development is influenced by ethnicity? I assume identification of age would be very dependent. How is the variety of the data set currently?
All right, thank you, Miss Itaza Afiani, all right, or Dr. Itaza Afiani. All right, so basically that the question is, how does development is influenced by ethnicity? All right, so actually that well, this is actually that yeah, just like what I said just now, that it could be due to the diet. But the thing is that in literatures, actually that there are a bunch of literature saying that actually the population, in terms of the population, they are going to be different in terms of the maturity of the teeth, right? So for example, like if I take the Demirjian system just now, that they use the French Canadian example, right? So in terms of the development, they are ahead of us in terms of the maturity and development. So which means that if you are saying that actually we are 6 years old, basically that they are actually 7, right? So actually they exceed the development by few months, if not less than 2 years, right? So basically that's the ethnicity difference that we see from that perspective, all right? But the thing is, I think now that, yeah, in terms of, for example, like people who live in one country, although that they are different ethnicity, well, I think that my hunch is that there's not much of different, but actually that there's not much of study on that. So basically that we still have to do some study to check the ethnicity within the country. Although that we can say that in Malaysia that we all eat the same thing, right? So we go to mama and eat roti canai and things, right? But the thing is, yeah, we cannot just say that the in terms of development is the same between the Malay, Chinese, and Indian, all right? Because we have to do a study on that as well, all right? Because actually in forensic that we need a unique thing, a unique parameters, right? Because actually that if something is unique, so basically we can use that to differentiate. We can use that to identify certain individuals, right? So that's why that I think that there still need for research to do that, and we are expanding this research to the whole ethnicity in Malaysia. And I really hope that you know, if someone's out there who really interested in this project, that yeah, just give me a call or email me so that we can do this together. Thank you.
Yes, talking about collaboration with Dr. Yusmi, and Dr. Yusmi just now mentioned to email you. Perhaps Dr. Yusmi can also leave your email address in the chat room so that our participant can contact you after this. So yeah, we have one participant, Zazira Anwar, said, thank you, Dr. Yusmi, for the great inputs and sharing session. Yeah, right. Any other question from our audience? All right. So yeah, Dr. Yusmi has put your email address in the chat room. All right. All right. So yeah, maybe one question from me, Dr. Yusmi.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned just now about the type of soil, acidic soil, right? That can impact the morphology of the teeth. What about alkaline soil and different types of soil?
All right. Well, that's yeah. Because actually, when I went to the field, usually because I did not really think so much about the soil and then its constituent, right? Because actually that's not really my field. But the thing is, what I realized is actually that when we exhume the graveyard, is actually that even the because we consider teeth is the strongest component in our body, because we have the enamel part, where yeah, in terms of the corrosion and everything is going to withstand that, all right? And then we were quite surprised that when we exhumed that, actually that the tooth that we've received and the long bone as well, it's very, very bitter. And then actually that I think few anthropologists from Australia, if I'm not mistaken, that they took the sample of the soil, and then they trying to run whether they want to see that the acidity of that particular soil. So basically, I think that they reported that the soil is very, very acidic, above the average. So I think that that's why that the tooth are very brittle and the bone are very, very brittle. You can't really lift it, if you're not using anything. So you have to use something to support that, otherwise it's going to just like shatters. All right. And then coming back to your questions, Dr. Hugh. Okay, I'm not sure that whether that the alkaline is going to affect the brittleness of the tooth, all right? Whether it's going to make the tooth any brittle or not, all right? But I'm not really sure to answer about that, because actually it's not really my field. So I think in that particular sense, I think that you are the right person to answer that, Dr. Hugh. All right. So what do you think about that? Whether any studies has been come out to see that whether alkaline soil can affect the strength of the tooth? I'm not sure, Dr. Hugh.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure about the tooth, but certainly the acidic and alkaline soil can affect the rate of decomposition and how the body decomposes. Yeah. But still a lot of studies need to be done.
All right.
So there's one more question, from Dr. Choi Kerwoon. For some situations, such as in an explosion, the teeth may be scattered, and it may be difficult to evaluate which individual the teeth belongs to. In this case, how does the identification can be done?
Oh, thank you, Dr. Choi, for these questions. All right, so actually that in this particular sense that we cannot do the age estimation anymore. But the thing is, if we manage to find a fraction of a portion of the tooth, all right, so basically that we can still do some analysis based on the DNA, because actually that we can crush the tooth using the cryogenic grinder, and then we can do some PCR to check for the DNA on that particular fragment, right? So that's another thing that we can do, because actually that for explosion, sometimes that we lost a lot of human tissues, all right? So basically if we find hard tissues, for example, a fragment of tooth, basically we can still do something out of it. We can still get some DNAs from that particular tooth. Rather that, but we have to do some, cryogenic grinding, and then to get it, very powdery, and then we send for the DNA analysis.
All right. So thank you for your answer. All right. Okay. I think if there's no more questions, I think let's conclude our webinar today. So thanks again to Associate Professor Dr. Yusmi for your great presentation. I think all the audience that come with us today. So thank you very much for your time and your participation, and hopefully we will see each other again. So jumpa lagi.